Hey, everybody. This podcast, even though we got a little bit of a late start today, is once again brought to you by Audible.com. And you can go to www.audibletrial.com/TNRL and sign up for a free 30-day trial membership. It is free. It doesn't cost you a thing. When you sign up for a free 30-day trial membership, you get access to one free audio download, a free book of your choice. There are over 100,000 to choose from. And I was just perusing the list today. There's quite a lot to look at there. When you do that, it helps us out. This is our sponsorship. This is how we maybe generate a little revenue for the show. Do it. It's free for you, and we get a little something out of it. You get a little something. It's a super good deal. www.audibletrial.com/TNRL. Sign up for the free 30-day trial membership. Get a free audio download. Take it away, Ken.
Jesus got out here.
I thought I was a good Christian.
Jesus died on a cross. I go to church every Sunday. Jesus got out here. Then I read that Jesus died on a cross for a rotten hooker.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday. I am a very religious person.
I thought I was a good Christian.
The very lies the serpent told to Eve in the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion.
Hey everybody, it is Monday, July 9th, 2012. I'm your host, Ken. With me all the way across the country, we have Bob.
How's it going?
And Jason.
Hey.
And today we are going to talk about all things Higgs boson. And let me tell you, I am super sick. I even tried praying to that goddamn particle and it did nothing. So even praying to things that do exist doesn't work.
Yeah.
We were batting around a few news items before the show, a couple days before the show, and I think first we should talk about the implications of what this discovery means. This is really big. I mean, this is what CERN's been looking for I don't even know how many years now, a couple of years, plus all the years of actually building that gigantic particle accelerator. It's what, like 17 miles in diameter or something like that, or miles long.
7. It's pretty big.
It's massive on a scale that's hard to even fathom.
All right, so if you've been living on an island, if you don't know, the CERN, the European scientific organization that oversees the Large Hadron Collider, they announced on the 4th. Today's the 9th. They announced on the 4th that with a very, very, very high degree of certainty that they found the Higgs boson. They found it in an energy range, and in all the characteristics meet what they had predicted it would be, and so they say they found it, and it has a lot of implications. So first off, we should talk a little bit about what I know. This isn't a physics show, but there are theological ramifications, maybe, or some cultural implications that this brings up. And so first of all, what this does is it solidifies the standard model of physics. The standard model of physics was the physics model that we've been using to explain the universe and everything in it, and it's been developed since the 60s and into the 70s. But because it's the standard model of physics is it's pretty complicated. There's a lot of things in it that are maybe unknown, sort of mysterious, we don't know a lot about. And one of those things, and it was proposed in, and it was, which is funny about this. Remember when we were talking about that sort of serendipitous nature in science, where many things that are really important are arrived at independently.
Yeah.
This is another one of those. They call the Higgs boson is named after one particular physicist, but there was like 6 guys that wrote 4 different papers all at the same time, all proposing the same particle, the same mechanism. It's just it got named after Peter Higgs. So one of the things that the standard model of physics would have predicted would have been this field that gives everything mass. And if you have this field, then it means you would have this particle, and they called it the Higgs boson. And it's what the standard model predicts would give all matter mass. That's why we can touch things, why things are solid. And they predicted this in 1964, and so ever since then they've been trying to come up with a way to experimentally observe its existence, but they were never able to create the conditions right to observe this particular particle because it would decay away so quickly. The conditions to create it are so very high energy. So along comes the Large Hadron Collider. They started building it in, I don't know, like 91, 93, something like that. And
yeah, it was back in the 90s, and I know that. It was a long time coming. Thing's gigantic.
Its whole purpose, I mean, they're doing lots of other stuff with it, but its main focus was to create, smash protons together at such high energies that they could observe this Higgs boson if it existed. And if it existed, it would prove the existence of the Higgs field, and it would go a long way to solidifying the standard model of physics. And so after decades of trying and billions of dollars and utilizing the most complicated machine ever built by man, they found it. And there it is. They not only did they, well, like typical scientists, they didn't just find it. They said that we found something that we're 99.999999999% certain is it, like to a very high degree of certainty. And they're going to move on. They're going to chug along and refine the standard model of physics, and we're going to know the world even better after this discovery.
Yeah, I love how the pieces just sort of fall into place here. They observe the world, they come up with a natural explanation for why things are the way they are. They do experiments, and it turns out that once again, things work exactly as they should without any sort of supernatural intervention. Now we know why matter has mass. Like,
so one of the things that makes the Higgs boson, that people are talking about it and why it's becoming sort of a cultural phenomenon or even a source for memes on Facebook is that. And I tried looking it up. I tried looking up who came up with this term, but because of its very important place in the standard model, and because of all the things that it implies, the Higgs boson, they nicknamed it the God particle. And so if you Google news stories about the Higgs boson, you will see it tied to this nickname, the God particle. And I tried finding out where that name came from because largely physicists working in the field, they hate that name. They in fact, they came up with a new nickname for it where they call it the champagne bottle particle or something like that because the champagne bottle nickname, which they say they like better, they say that the energy signature has a shape that's similar to the bottom of a champagne bottle, and that its discovery in and of itself is cause for breaking open the champagne.
The term God particle is actually I think it came from a news outlet, because what scientists were calling it before was the goddamn particle, because it was so hard to find, so hard to track down.
That's really close. And that might the only solid thing that I could find about the God particle theme came from a book in 1993 by Leon Letterman, and he called it. His book was called The God Particle. If the universe is the answer, what is the question? And in his intro to the book, he said that they call it the God particle because the particle is so central to the state of physics today, so crucial to our final understanding of the structure of matter, yet so elusive. But then he says the publisher wouldn't let us call it the goddamn particle, though that might be more appropriate given its villainous nature and the expense it is causing. So I don't know if anybody said it before him, but he seems to be getting credit for it.
Just see. Yeah, I'm trying to look it up now. I know it was something about they thought calling it the goddamn particle was too offensive to readers, so they shortened it to God particle.
Yeah, when they assign a nickname to it like that, when they call it the God particle, when it's something so important, I don't know, and then everybody starts assigning theological value to it.
Yeah, well, that happens. Nuance is lost on those who see the world in black and white. So I don't know. So what do you think the theological implications are? I mean, this is. I'm not a physicist, and I know neither you or Jason or maybe almost anyone who's listening to the show. But in layman's terms, what do you think the theological implications are?
I think that guys like who's the BioLogos guy? Is it Ken? Shit. I think the BioLogos people will be able to take this in stride because, in fact, to them it would be the God particle. It would just they would find evidence of God in the I guess elegance and symmetry of the universe. They would see that as evidence of a creator. So I don't think they would have a problem with it because they seem to be pretty accommodating of it. But I think that for a lot of people, that this is going to diminish the gaps that God has to fill in. Because for a lot of people, anything that's unknowable is something God did, and as we know more and more, God becomes less and less necessary.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you're looking at like explanations for cosmogenesis, because I mean this might be my showing, but
I'm sorry. One more time, we lost you on that one.
What's that?
I didn't hear that.
Sorry. Seems like we're having technical difficulties. This might be my scientific ignorance showing, but this has a lot of implications on cosmogenesis and what happened in those few microseconds after the Big Bang that we don't really understand yet with our current understanding of physics. I mean, we know a singularity occurred, and then we know universe, but we don't know anything between those two.
Yeah, well, that's the funny thing about that is that and I've heard physicists answer that question about when people ask that smug question about what happened before the Big Bang? What was there before then? And that question in and of itself demonstrates a lack of understanding about what was going on, because not only was the Big Bang the start of all matter, it was the start of all time. Time started then too. So to ask the question, what happened before, doesn't understand that there was no before. There was no time. Time started then. And I don't it's hard to wrap your mind around it. And there are some people who sort of liken this degree of understanding the universe and what's happening in it and particle physics in general as that we are at the end of our cognitive ropes. As human beings, we're not very well equipped to understand what's going on. Although with a lot of hard work, we can.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that's it's hard to understand the concept of no time, like that time doesn't exist, because everything we experience and we look at and we understand in perspective of time, and everything is put into that perspective. So like things like non-existence and no time, I really for most people don't make sense. Like they don't grasp it. There was a study done a number of years ago that showed that most humans have a hard time conceptualizing numbers larger than 4 or 5 because evolutionarily speaking, you don't need to. Your brain isn't wired that way to need to understand anything more than short periods of time into the future and numbers higher than 4 or 5.
Did you? I was listening to. I know this is like segue off the topic, but I thought it was really neat. You mentioned that understanding of numbers, 4 and 5. There was a group that looked at. They're starting to branch into this new way of thinking called embodied cognition, and what that means is that how you think is tied to your body somehow. And what they did was they went and surveyed various cultures across the world and found out how you count on your fingers determines how you visualize numbers. And did you see Inglourious Bastards?
I didn't.
Right? Remember when the guy was impersonating the Nazi officer and he ordered 2 drinks, but he held up his 2 fingers? But really, if he was a German, he'd have held up his thumb and forefinger for 2. And like how culturally we're different that way. We count on our fingers differently. And like if you were to count 1 through 5, you may hold up your hand and go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then like extend your fingers. But then there's other cultures when they count, they represent the numbers like the number 5 would be like their closed fist because all they count the curled up fingers and not the extended fingers. And but again, that's all tied into how we are wired to think in numbers 4 or 5 because it just so happens that's how many digits we have.
Yeah, I think that's really funny. My grandparents, my father's parents, being French, they count like that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Start with their thumb rather than their index finger. Numbers are really interesting. The Celts had a base 20 system. The Babylonians had a base 60. Numbers are completely conceptual.
Yeah. And I don't want to get too far off topic. It's kind of neat. Listen to the Skeptics Guide. They talk about it a little bit. But when you're dealing with these notions of particle physics and ideas of things that don't exist outside of time or occur in more than 3 spatial dimensions, it's really hard to think about.
Yeah, that's another thing. With physics, it seems like as they were building the standard model, the more dimensions they added to things, the more their equations made sense, because nothing made sense in just 3 dimensions. But to sit back and think about that and be like, the universe is made up of more than just length, width, and height. Right. There are more dimensions than that. It's mind blowing.
It is hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
Just explaining relativity to somebody, that's tough to get through. It's hard. But the thing is, just because you don't understand it And just because it's difficult to understand doesn't mean it's not understandable. Like I sort of like to think that there are no mysteries that can't be solved. With hard work and rigorous application of scientific method, you can figure anything out.
Yeah, it just takes time or no time.
Well, this one took 64 to 2012. That's 36, 46, 48 years.
48 years. Yeah.
I'm doing math in my head right there. Arithmetic.
Yeah. 48 years.
But it's a theory that was tentatively put out there, and it seemed to it fit the model, and it had explanatory power, and it had predictive power too. Only it took them, it took them 48 years to figure out how to predict it
and how to test
measure it, I guess.
I think that's the hardest part is, it's not only they could predict it, but the technology back in the 60s, there's no way they could test it. It took them almost 50 years just to be able to build the machines to be able to test their hypothesis. They had to wait for technology to catch up with what they were thinking and positing.
Yeah, it's funny if you think about it, right? The theory was proposed in '64. They didn't start building the LHC until '93. That means it took 30 years just to think of the machine to get there.
Yeah.
And another 10 to build that. Another 10 years of research using that machine that you took 10 years to build and 30 years to think of.
It took more than 10 years just to build the thing. They fired it up. Was it 2 years ago?
No, they fired it up a little sooner than that, although it wasn't that long ago. And then they had remember one of the magnets or something blew up, so they had to shut it down, and then that delayed it a couple years.
And there was the guy saying he came back from the future to stop.
Yeah, right, yeah. And remember when it was starting up that there was some people that were petitioning or suing their governments to have it shut down because they were afraid that it would create black holes that would swallow reality.
Yeah, well, I mean, there were Nobel laureate physicists who were genuinely afraid of that because apparently it was a possibility. Micro black holes.
Well, I think they said that they know that they're doing that, but they flash in and out of existence so quickly as to not matter. Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, they get made all the time. That's the thing. The Higgs boson gets... if you could go high enough up into the atmosphere and study a large enough section of it for enough time, you would discover it. But it's such a variable... No, I guess it's from photons hitting the atmosphere at the speed that photons travel at, can actually show evidence of Higgs field activity. But
photons travel at the speed of light.
Yeah,
just
180,000 miles per second.
That's exactly how fast they travel.
Yeah. Yes. Which is almost as fast as photons are traveling.
But you remember when the neutrinos that the Opera project at CERN came out with the faster than light neutrinos?
Yeah.
And a lot of people were jumping on that, going, "See, even that breaks down. That violates these laws of physics." Well, no, it didn't. It didn't violate the laws of physics. And we even said then, I said, well, probably it's not real, and even if it is, it doesn't change anything. But it turns out it wasn't real. It didn't happen. In fact, that experiment just confirmed the standard model rather than break it like everybody thought it was going to.
It would have been interesting if it was real.
Well, yeah, I know, right? It would have been great, but I don't know. It's just how people apply that logic, like, ha, see, this was not true, and that means that everything else isn't true. That agitates me a little bit. You know, all the best scientific discoveries are made when somebody goes, not eureka, but that's strange.
Yeah, I think that's true. Or when someone comes up, views something and sees it, and then comes up with a good question. I honestly think questions are almost as good, if not better, than answers. You know, I like it when scientists come up with something and it makes them ask more questions.
Yeah, well, we'll see where else. We'll have to see where else the LHC goes with this. I mean, they I think that they're gonna do. You know, they're probably gonna do more experiments to like nail down the Higgs, but I think that what was the energy values like? They were at, it can get up to like
12.5 giga electron volts, I think.
Right, but they can get up to 14 tera electron volts. Like they can go higher. They can go faster.
Yeah, they can go way higher.
They can do more. You know, I'm just let's see where they go.
God, that's crazy. 12.5 billion electron volts.
It's the most complicated machine ever built by man.
Yeah, and it's massive. I think that's the thing that blows my mind is just how big it is. Like it's huge, and it's built like underground, like on the Swiss-Italian border.
Man, that's pretty cool. So, well done, CERN. Way to, science for the win. And we'll see what the fallout is in the coming weeks. I was sort of surprised. A lot of religious websites were kind of quiet about it.
Not really. They were going off on it. I mean, even the link that I sent you about.
But that guy's already dead.
What's that?
That physicist is already dead.
But there's a lot of the memes that were following. That I keep up with the like Christian forums and stuff, and there was a lot of like memes going on within those circles about showing how the world is just exploding, and it's saying it's the cause because of all this, and that they're going to destroy
the knowledge will undo us all.
Yeah, pretty much.
The only one I've heard was the Higgs boson walks into a church and the priest says, "You can't come in here," and the Higgs boson says, "Well, without me, you can't have mass."
And the chat room is saying that recent studies show that people will believe anything if a scientist says it.
That's relatively true. It really is.
That has no bearing on whether it's true or not. Whether
that's
people
also
believe
true.
it or not is one thing. Whether it's true or not is another.
Actually, I'm interested by that because, oh God, who was it? It was, this shows I haven't been in school in a while. The perils of obedience testing that happened in the 50s showed that people were more likely to do things outside their own nature if a person in a lab coat told them to do it. But I wonder how likely that would be here in the United States, a country where science is so widely disregarded.
I think you need like a lab coat and a clipboard. Then you can get somebody to do anything.
It works for commercials.
Yeah.
Or a vestibule and a fancy robe.
Yeah. I mean that's yeah, I mean there was a study that they showed that actually people, if you put them in a lab coat, they behaved like scientists, like they like
weird.
They became more critical, and they became more methodical in their thinking. So it's not just the person in the lab coat. Put them in the lab coat, and then they take on that role. They start thinking in a more critical fashion.
But
So what we should do in schools is make school uniforms all lab coats, and that would
Well, they found that the effect wore off though. Like it has to do with
when
the
people
novelty.
realized, wait a minute, I really don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So
So
well, it's
else-
role
what else was
expectation,
in
and the looking glass self. You are who you think other people think you are, and that can completely affect your nature.
What have you seen on the on the religious forums about the Higgs boson?
Well, that quote that I just said, Matt said that he got it from a Christian post about how that their argument, I guess, and I'm putting words in his mouth, but I would assume that their argument is that people will believe anything scientists tell them. And it's just mainly everything I've seen.
And I'd argue that people believe anything their pastor tells them.
Touche. But pretty much everything that I've seen of people's reaction, it's been the full realm of it. People were fascinated by it in the Christian forums. And then just like everything else on the internet, there's always the people that say it's the end of the world, it's the end of the time, it's part of the apocalypse, it's been prophesized, it's whatever. And I would like to see where it's been prophesized that they're going to find mass in the Bible.
I know. You can look in the book of Revelation, and this I can interpret as the discovery of the Higgs boson is the thing.
But again, just browsing the forums, it gives you such a wide range of views, and not most 90% of it's not going to be representative the same way with anything else you find on the internet. But there is a lot of people on there talking about how it's going to destroy the world. But there was also a lot of people talking about how in December the world's going to end because the Mayan calendar cycle changes. But
those people are awful.
Yeah.
That's
you know what's even better? They recently found a Mayan calendar that goes beyond 2012.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But they didn't just recently find that. They found that
Right,
a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, that's how
Look at
all
it twice.
archaeological studies go. They find it, 10 years ago, and then it makes it into the mainstream.
Well, the chat room is saying that they're quoting how this is justified. It says that, quote, knowledge will increase. So there you go.
Oh, okay.
That's an interesting thing. It seems like there's an anti-intellectual sort of cautionary tale in most religions. The ancient Greeks had Pandora. Curiosity killed the cat. In the Bible, it's Eve. Curiosity and thirst for knowledge got the best of her. Look at the fallen state of humanity is all because Eve, thought for herself for a second and tried that apple. So keep your head down. Don't think.
But you know what we need to do? We need to get people to think, and we need to do an advertising break right now.
Oh, yeah.
Well, luckily, Bob picked out a good.
So I'm not sure if we covered this one before, but we were talking about how difficult some of these high-end physics theories are to comprehend, relativity, things like that. Turns out there's a great book about it, and it's called The Elegant Universe by Brian Greene. And he is I think he's a Nobel laureate. He is a physicist, and he wrote a book called The Elegant Universe. And he really lays out in very, I don't want to say he puts it on the layman's level, but he does. It is a great book that will really enhance your understanding of physics and the Standard Model and how physics is explaining the world. And it's great. He illustrates relativity, and he illustrates quantum mechanics, and he illustrates, all of these ideas that people find incredibly hard to grasp. He covers in a very easy to understand manner, and it's a good read. It is one of the best books I've ever read. It's available for free at www.audibletrial.com/TNRL. You can download it for free and listen to it on your drive to work, and I promise you will be a smarter person for it. But he's a scientist, so you can't really believe what he has to say.
Also, there's a website called "It's Okay to Be Smart," and they do like little. I guess they break down science in little video and fun short videos they do, and they have one that's based on this topic that's really, really fun to watch. So
Yeah.
you should go check that out as well.
Well, there you have it. All right. So like I said, these concepts that are at the end of put you at the end of your cognitive tether. He does a very good job of explaining them. I mean, he sort of explains 11-dimensional space. Seems pretty weird, but yet there it is. That's what we think is happening.
I'm not impressed until it's TV.
Right. I want 3D. No, you get 40, 5D, 6D.
At 11th D TV.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do. Jason, get on it.
I'm
Sonic
working on it.
Popcorn needs to be the first 11D.
Well, they already do quantum projection. They can already put images onto like an electron cloud type. Have you read that? So if we can broadcast this show that way, hell yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I have trouble thinking about like multi-dimensional space, like 3 spatial dimensions and a time dimension. I get, but beyond that, I have really a hard time imagining it. It's tough, and Brian Greene's book helped a lot, but it's still not easy.
Yeah, I'm the same way. We could broadcast via entanglement. No? Nobody? Oh.
But what? I didn't hear that.
I say we could broadcast via entanglement.
Yeah.
That's really... Yeah, I
Every time
get...
you raise your right
I get
arm, I'll raise my
3
left.
dimensions in time.
And I didn't know it happened.
Yeah.
All right, ready? Go.
No, like Bob was saying, I get 3 dimensions in time. I understand that. Because time we can experience, and 3 dimensions, we view the entire world in 3 dimensions all the time. Unless you have one eye, and then you don't view it in 3 dimensions. But, if you have, bioptic vision, then yes, you view in 2 dimensions.
That's what I keep telling Jason. Life is in 3D, man.
I have a story that I met a guy, and he was married to this woman, and the woman asked me why am I obsessed with 3D, and then I just totally went off on this big tangent about 3D, and then later I found that her husband was sitting there, and he only had one eye.
Yeah.
I was like, we should all go.
No.
Come on. And he's like, no. I was like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Oh, wait.
Yeah.
To him, it just looks weird, and that's... No.
So, with the discovery of the Higgs boson and all of the religious groups about the scientists, people believe anything a scientist say. I did read that link you sent me about the Pakistani, and that guy was a Nobel laureate, and he was like one of the groups that helped form the Standard Model in the 60s and 70s. He was like the physicist, and he was a Pakistani particle physicist, and now he's being what do they say? Shunned. He's dead. All right, he's dead now, but his name is being taken out of textbooks, and his name is being stricken from all public records in Pakistan because he is a member of some Muslim sect that is not recognized by the government of Pakistan or something. Like they, he's a member of some fringe religious group, and because of his religious affiliation, they're I don't know, marginalizing them. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a better term.
Yeah,
It's not just him, and it's not just him, and it's not just because of his work on the LHC. It's just because of his religious affiliation.
Yeah, ignore his works, ignore what he contribute to the world and society, and just look at his religious affiliations. So let's get him out of here.
That's I don't know, that's awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's nuts. And that's one of the problems with with religion. It's not uncommon either. In Germany, physics textbooks or physics books written by people who were Jewish were burned. Simply based on the fact that they were Jewish. Good physics, good science, just because of someone's private ideological belief or connections.
Yeah, that's terrible too, because I would argue that science largely has united us. Science demonstrates our shared humanity, whereas I think in a lot of instances, people's religion separate us, which is sad.
Yeah.
But I think I could argue that case.
I agree. And it's sad. It's really sad to see that happen. His work is invaluable. Like you can't even put a level of value on this guy's work because it was so instrumental in what we now have as new scientific knowledge, new understanding, new insight into the universe and how it works.
Yeah, a lot of people thought it was important too because he did share the Nobel Prize with another guy for his work in physics. I think he did like neutrinos or something. Shit, what was his name?
Look it up.
And so he's getting, but he's just sort of the face on the issue. It's that whole religious minority that's being, I don't know if oppressed is the right word, but I don't know. That's awful. And I'm sure everybody's going to be, anybody could like raise the red flag and say like, oh, eugenics, and you're right, those were bad moves, but they
as if that needs to be said. As if that needs to be said.
Well, right, but I mean, I don't know. I guess if you're you're like a judge at a boxing match, if you're the ringside scorekeeper, I would say science has got fewer black eyes than religion ever will, or religion ever has, or religion. Losing my train of thought, thinking about boxing matches.
Squirrel.
Yeah. I don't know. I lay a lot of things at the feet of religion, and I don't.
The chat room brings up the atomic bomb.
Yeah. Yeah, the Manhattan Project was huge in science.
Logically fallacious.
That reminds me of the Patton Oswalt joke where, he says, "Hey, look, I just made this this cancer contagious and airborne." And he says, like, science all about coulda, never about shoulda. Yeah. And that I think that's a fair criticism, but science also seeks to solve the problems it creates.
Well, I think it can be said for both sides of the fence of science and religion. It's like the idea of religion and the idea of science, I guess the true sense of it. They both are trying. One, science is trying to understand the world and hopefully will make it better. Religion already understands the world, but trying to make it better. But it's when we put us in as the messengers, that's where it gets messed up. That's where it becomes full of greed, both on religious, and that's how the atomic bomb can be made. That's how.
Well, I agree. I mean, I think that's. You're right, but I think that throwing up the atomic bomb is a very unfair argument, because more people have been killed by gunpowder and bullets than have ever died because of a nuclear explosion.
But that's still science.
And so should we have never invented gunpowder?
Well, it wasn't invented for that purpose.
No, but should the gun have ever? So there's like this. There's that reductionist argument, like, oh,
But Matt loves reductionist.
I know.
No.
So if we more people have died by stabbing and sword wounds than have ever been killed by gunpowder. Well, so then like, oh well, then we should have invented metallurgy and we should have invented science in general. We should have never had that sense of exploration or discovery. So that's not.
So you're saying progress should not be hindered by what evils could come about?
No.
That's not what you're saying, or is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, yes, that is what I'm saying. I mean, things come at a cost, and no discovery is without its pitfalls and misuses, and so we need to knowing more prevents them from happening.
I'm being
I'd say that knowledge is neither good nor evil. It's how people act with it, and the pursuit of knowledge is not a moral question either.
And the chat room is wanting me to make the comment that the scientific worldview is new.
Well, sure it is. It's less than 200 years old, but think about where we've gotten in that time. I mean, man, it's really working good. The scientific method is kicking ass. It is delivering the goods.
It says the scientific worldview is new, less time to screw up, but it has had them and it will continue to.
Why is the picture all?
Just keep going.
Yeah. I mean that's fine. You can't. It's not the scientific worldview's fault that it's new. All right,
I'd say even for how new it is, it's delivered more in its 200 years of modern scientific understanding than any other worldview has in the exponentially more time.
Yeah, well, then I would say the religious worldview has been around for 5,000 years, give or take, and it hasn't gotten it right yet.
True that.
I don't know. You're like, yeah, that nuclear weapons are horrible. It's a horrible thing that is the reality of our world. But that didn't mean that those guys working on the Manhattan Project or the guys doing the first steps in discovering fission were evil men. They were just scientists. They were just exploring and discovering facts and the nature of our world. It's other people who have applied it in manners that could be regarded as less than ethical.
But do you think for science should have free range? I mean, could there be a point, and some would say that it's currently happening on the verge of becoming that, couldn't science get to the point where, just like everything else, when it becomes privatized and corporations take a hold of it, that bad things happen? We could tear down, but we shouldn't in this program, but we could tear down like Monsanto, the genetic modifications of food and the side effects that it has on health and environment.
Well, you're already starting from a premise where GMO foods are bad.
No, I'm starting from a premise that where we know there's been bad side effects of this type of GMO.
Like what?
But I'm just saying, because that's a whole other show, because we only have 10 minutes to go into it. But I'm just saying, I'm just using that for an example. Is like, is there a time that science can just be used for? I guess another example would be science is used to build military, to build nothing but methods of destruction.
Well, that's a good question. And I think that the Manhattan Project is a good illustration of that. There is some thought that had the Manhattan Project not succeeded, we would have lost World War II. Or World War II would have dragged on for a number of years, and the casualties would have been higher than they were.
But that's just saying, like, if we don't go against, if we don't fight against terrorism now, they will come and get us. We don't know what the outcome is. We don't know how much of that's propaganda, and we don't know how much of it's actually.
Right, you don't. But I, that's the threat of nuclear attack is a huge deterrent, and you could make the argument that soundly won the war, World War II, or at least the war in the Pacific. And so, that was a big decision. Like, somebody, the president had to make the decision. Like, all right, do we use this weapon or do we fight the war and let it drag on? And he decided to use it, and for good or bad, that's what happened. And his rationale was that if I don't do it, we will continue to fight, and casualties will be higher, and this will drag on for both sides. It's not going to be good for anybody. And so they used a weapon to swiftly end a conflict.
So with that statement, you're saying that even if science is used to build mechanics of destruction, that it's used for military means only, then it's still okay.
Well, all right. So I wouldn't say it's used for military means only, but I guess there's sometimes when I guess it's that thing where that's that what is it, like détente or mutually assured destruction? Like, if you didn't have nuclear weapons, you could be sure the other side probably does, and so it means you better have them too. You can only proceed in your own most ethical manner, but that doesn't mean the other guy will. And so that's why we have weapons, why we have a standing army, why we have a military. I don't know. Those are tough questions, and I don't pretend to have all the answers. But science, other issues in science would be like human cloning, right? There's a lot of ethical debate running around about human cloning.
Well, there's
I promise you, someone's going to do it.
But there's the more modern argument, which has already happened, is genetically modified humans. They've already gave birth in America to 3 babies that was genetically modified.
Yeah, I read about that. I forget what the modification was.
They took it from 3 fathers, three different fathers, and a cell from one woman, and merged the DNA from those 3 fathers into
right
to see what the outcome will become. And they did it with 3 babies were born from this experiment, but from different fathers of all 3 babies.
Yeah, I read something about that, and I was a little disappointed in it because it wasn't like they were it wasn't. I don't remember it being like true genetic modification in the sense that, like, this baby will have blue eyes and it'll be genetically predisposed to athletics, and it'll and this baby will be genetically predisposed to academics, right? It's not like they made those decisions. They just sort of threw it all together.
It's a mosh podge of let's see what comes out,
right?
But by splicing
that is a first step, and like I said, I promise you, if you're not doing it, if we being the U.S. and or European scientists, somebody else is.
But what I don't see how that's a valid argument. I mean, I guess there's a more of a chance to understand, okay, if we don't have a bomb, they're going to have a bomb and they're going to use it against us. So if we both have bombs, I don't agree with that tactic, but for the sake of argument, yeah, I can see where that's valid. How is it valid to say if we don't grow genetically modified people, they're going to do it? So what?
I guess in that regard, science is kind of a race, and if you can imagine a world where one nation is excelling at exploiting an avenue of science and getting some national benefit from it, whatever that may be. They can either share it or they can keep it to themselves. And if they keep it to themselves, then they're going to be the sole holders of that advantage. And if they don't share it, then you either have to duplicate it or find that advantage yourself.
Or do like you do in the Civilization game, send a spy over and take it.
Send a spy over, yeah. We can learn a lot from Civilization.
Yes, I love that game, but
Take a peek at their tech tree and find out what they're doing.
Yeah.
I stole Alphabet.
But I mean, that's true though, right? Like when nations have those technological advantages, whatever it may be, that becomes currency. That becomes, that becomes something that gives them a leg up on the rest of the world because it is competition.
But I guess from a non-religious viewpoint of where does the morality come with that?
That's a good point, and it's hard. It's not easy. I mean, it brings up a lot of hard questions with difficult answers.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I just think that as stewards, we should do the best we can. And how often do you hear me say like, oh well, there's this and this and this, and we can do better.
It's true.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. You got me waxing philosophical.
No, it's good. It's good to do that every once in a while on this show.
Shut up, Bob.
We got
Bob the philosopher.
We got 3 minutes. So you want to wrap us up, Ken?
Sure.
Oh wait, we got to give out the winner.
I know.
Shit.
And we got some good applications, some good stuff. Should I announce the winner here on the show?
You should definitely do that.
Okay. Winner ended up being picked via our criteria. Was actually kind of a late entrant. Ben Frey.
A local.
A local. I know. We had all sorts of entrants, so it's cool to see a local win. Or local to you, anyway.
Yeah.
To
give a background, Ben Frey has.
Is he the head of the ODU Student Secular Alliance?
Yes, sir.
Student Secular Alliance, yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Good job.
So, we'll follow up with him to get his contact info where we can send the book. And so congratulations, Ben Frey. You're the winner.
Yay. Awesome.
With that, we'll wrap up the show. And just everyone know, you might not have won. You can still pick up the book. Link on the site to go to purchase it. It's only $25. It's not bad. Tried to keep the price down as much as I could in printing. And with that said, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you want to correct our physics or our philosophy of science,
which is
I'm
shaky, I admit.
Sure, there's plenty. You can call us 757-337-2195. Email, Facebook, Google+, iTunes, Stitcher Radio. You can find us on all of those sites, or you can just go to the website, zombiepopcorn.com, sign up for the newsletter. All the information's there, all the info about new shows, great shows, either this one, Talking Dead, Coalesce, amazing stuff. Jason's always got giveaways and cool contests, so go there, sign up for that, and check out all the stuff that the network has to offer. With that, anything anyone else has to say?
Well, I just have to say that according to comments that we got on Facebook, that Zombie Popcorn is now an evil empire. Woohoo!
We are, yes. Excellent. When did that happen?
Either this morning or last night, I don't remember. But
Who called us an evil empire?
Just one of our fans. Yay!
So that's the day you've been waiting for,
I'm like, high praise. That is high praise. High praise.
Victorious.
Next, the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, y'all have a good night.
Good night.
Later.
I need to hit record real quick because Matt does bring up a good point.
We're back.
Last minute intro here is I want to give personal thanks to Liberty University for sponsoring our YouTube videos.
Oh yeah,
Thank
what
you.
happened with that? I saw the picture. What's the story with that?
On all of our, not all of them, but majority of, Matt was over one night and we were just shooting the shit, talking and planning the next episode and whatever. And I wanted to show him a video of non-religious life where we had the flames and the smoke and stuff.
Yeah.
And as I was pulling it up looking for it, because I couldn't remember what episode it was, I noticed that on majority of our non-religious life videos, Liberty University has ads running on them. So, yay!
Awesome.
Oh, the irony.
So anyway, have a good night.
Jesus got out here.
I thought I was a good Christian.
Jesus died on a cross. I go to church every Sunday. Jesus got out here. Then I read that this Jesus died on a cross for a rotten hooker.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday. I'm a very religious person.
I thought I was a good Christian.
The very lies the serpent told to Eve in the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel.